Hi, my name is Arnold Martinez, and it's a pleasure for me to be with you sharing this important session. We will be covering today a topic that I'm really sure, based on my experience, that for most of the organizations, it's a really sensitive topic, which is how can you make sure that you can protect the most valuable asset of your organization, which in this case is the data. So, on this session, we'll be covering how Microsoft provides this technology that is made available for, to accomplish these requirements for most of the organizations related to how to make sure that the information is properly classified and also protected. Well, the solution that Microsoft has made available for you is Azure Information Protection, which is a really powerful solution that we will see during this session that you can make use in your organization if you have obviously the right subscriptions, and it's a matter of just making sure that you have it available for your organization. So today we'll be covering some basic agenda that I'm going to share with you. We will start with information classification. I know that for most of you already know what information classification is, right? But there are other people also that maybe they are not aware of this process. They know, they need to protect their information, but they also need to understand that in order to make the protection, it's the right way is to have also an information classification policy. So after that, we will see how the classification and protection process is available using the Azure IP solution that I'm going to share with you. What are the capabilities? What Azure IP has, and for you, how can you make use of these capabilities that are available in order to make sure in your organization protect and classify the data. And we will see also, this is very important, how to what are the components that are compose the Azure Information Protection, the anatomy. Okay, and after that we will see how can we make the rights the protection of the information using the solution for rights management services. This will be another topic, but we will just cover the basic so you understand how the Azure IP works. And finally, for most of you, was one also very interested in doing a demo, and we will see some how the Azure IP console is for the admin guys. Right? So basically here, if you have some years working in technology, in those times the requirement was how can we make sure, how do we ensure that the information is protected inside the network. So if you were maybe working in communications, I know that some department they were interested in creating, for example, in the security department, for example, creating some firewall technologies. If we could have more firewalls to protect the perimeter firewall, the internal firewall, just trying to have a lot of firewalls and intrusion detection system and IPS, the intrusion prevention system, in order to make sure that to protect the information and the organization resources internally. Because the idea was that all the threats and the suspicious activities were coming from external network. So the hackers and the people that wanted to steal the information from the organization was coming from outside. But as we have been in the in the last years, that the information needs to be secured not only from external attackers but also from internal misuse, because maybe sometimes as you can see, the information is stored in different locations, because as you know, if the information cannot be consumed, then it's not useful. The information needs to be shared, needs to be consumed in order to have the proper value. So how can we make sure that if one end user creates a sensitive files and store in a USB, how can we make sure that even the information is moved maybe to a different device like a USB drive or something like that, or maybe moving the information to the cloud. How do we make sure that even information is located in different locations, we can, have that peace of mind that I can control where my information is. You can see we have different user identities, many users trying to get access through different type of application, trying to make access through different kind of devices, trying to get access to the data. And also the data needs to be shared with employees, business partners, and also clients. So this is like the big requirements, having different requirements for access to information from different perspectives. So how do we ensure, how can we be in peace that we can share the information without any difficulty? So let's see, that's what we wanted to cover. You will see how the Azure Information Protection, it's a solution that you can make use and take advantage of it. But let's first focus on what is information classification. Okay, I know, for example, in my consulting experience, that for most of the organizations, they want to protect their data, but most of the organizations, they lack of the right process, which in this case is, first, we need to have an information classification policy. What is information classification? Okay, it's the process for separating information into different categories or levels, where you would apply different controls, policies, and maybe you have different requirements for the data. So you have all the data from your organization, but then you need to separate the information in different category or level depending on the sensitivity of the information. And that's what I put also the first step. One of the first steps is the information owners and also the actors in the organizations. That means that all the people that are involved, that knows how the information flow goes. That's one of the basic points, and those people needs to be involved in the information classification policy creation. So, just in a summary, if you're going to be working in the information classification, you will define the different levels, but then you also need the people that will be involved consuming, creating the information. Once that is done, the next step also is to make sure that once you have the information classification policy in place, it also enables your end users. Because I have seen many projects where the organizations, they implement the information classification and protection solution, but they don't spend or invest time in end users, educating them, training them. What are the classifications that are available? How can you identify if one information needs to be classified in some way? So it's really important to train the end users on how they can manage the information sensitivity and how they will make use of the information classification. So after that, let me tell you that through the Azure IP, we can manage this classification and protection process. We can make sure that the information is classified in the entire life cycle of the information. Okay, Azure Information Protection, it's a cloud-based solution that will help to the organizations, who will help you to classify, label, and protect its document and emails. Okay, so with the Azure IP, you have that capability. You have the you can go with the Azure IP through the classification and protection process. Okay, you need to classify it, as we saw when we were talking. After that, the labeling, because I have seen many people that they print the information that is classified, but they just leave that information on the desk, and then maybe they go to the restroom or whatever, and they leave the paper on the desk. Then someone else can just come here and see the paper, see the information, but the paper doesn't say this is classified information or confidential information. So that is why I have seen this requirement for labeling having the right effect. Okay, so you need to make sure that information is correctly classified and also has the proper labeling. If you have the header, footer, watermarking, and all of that. And once the information is classified and labeled, we also need to make sure to rise up the security level by doing some encryption. Okay, we will see later on how the encryption process work, how the Azure IP make use of the rights management services to do the encryption. But the point here is that we need to have a mechanism to encrypt the data. After that, we also need to have the access control. So that means that how can we make sure that we have the proper access control? How do we make sure that the right people is, getting access to the information that they only need? And once we have those access control, we can make them available or configure them through the policy enforcement. That means that we could have a policy with the right encryption, with the right user rights, with the right actions, because we need to share the information, but we also need to make sure to control what someone else can do with that information. Once we have that, if in some case maybe the information has been compromised, then we also have the document tracking option, which is okay. We need to know where my information is going on, where my information is going, where it's stored, who accesses my information. So we have that document tracking capabilities with Azure IP. And also, if sometimes you find that maybe a document has been compromised, then you also have the option to revoke that document. That means that if you share this document with a specific person, but if the document was compromised, then you can also revocate. That means that document will not be consumed anymore. So you can see through all the classification and protection process, you can do it with the Azure IP. Okay, capabilities, that's something that we have already talked. Classification and labeling, okay, very important to classify the information. One of the things that I want to emphasize here is that it's really important that to mention is that with the Azure IP solution, we can make sure that information, as soon as it's created from the beginning, it has to be classified. So we cannot leave to the end user the responsibility, only to the end users. We cannot do that, right? We need to be more proactive. So in this case, using Azure IP, we have that capability. We can define the rules, or for example, if when we find some information or some content in some files or emails, then we need to apply the right classification. So with Azure IP, you can do that. Protection and user rights, okay, well, we'll see that with rights management services. We can classify it and share. It doesn't matter where the information goes, because the information will be protected with the right permissions and with the right actions for those who have access. And the tracking and reporting, okay, this is really important because we have some reports where this report can help you to show to any security, compliance, or regulatory that will ask you to show them how do you control where the information, confidential and very sensitive information, is going on. Okay, the anatomy it's basically composed by four components. The first one is the policies, where the policies you can define if it's a global, if the policy for classification will be available to some specific groups. Maybe if you are doing a pilot or something like that, you can play with that. You have that options to define if the policy, what group targets will be applied this policy. This policy will contain the classifications. I don't know you, but I like colors. So that allows you to classify the information in different colors based on information sensitivity. So for example, here we have the best practices that we have, based on our experience and Microsoft experience and the clients also. The recommendation is to have 5 classifications, no more, because you cannot accomplish all the requirements, and if you make more labels, then it will be very complex and unmanageable. So the recommendation is to have 5: personal, public, general, confidential, and highly confidential. Well, this is in Spanish, but let's see. And here you have also, there are two aspects that are really necessary to understand here, is that it's very powerful because you can define some classification, manual classification. That means that if you can leave your users to classify the document manually, but also you have the capability, as we talked before, we have the capability to manage the information, manage the classification in an automatic way based on content. We can look, or the solution can look for some specific phrases or patterns that will check will classify the document. And we also have the capability to train the user through the application. If the user is creating a document that has some specific content, and if we have defined the rules here on the classification, on the conditions, if he's maybe typing something that is considered confidential, then the document will be recommended. If you configure as recommended, it will recommend to the user what classification to use. Or if you have the automatic, then that means that it will not ask to the end user. It will just apply the automatic classification if it's confidential, because it has confidential document or information. Then that information will be classified automatically. And another point here is that we have defined levels, but we can also define some sub-levels. For example, if you have in highly confidential, you have maybe some specific project, then you can also create sub-levels right there. And the third component is labeling. If you have, you have some requirements for header or footer or watermarking, you also have that capability to add to the document. Okay, and the fourth component is the encryption. Okay, we have the policy, we have the classification, we have the labels, the different labels, but we also need to raise up the security by integrating or using encryption. We need to protect the information using the right policy template. Okay, all right. As I told you, Azure IP is a solution. There is a combination between the Microsoft acquired another company that was called Secure Island. Secure Island was a very powerful classifications solution outside. So Microsoft acquired Secure Island and combined Secure Island with rights management services and made the Azure IP a really powerful, a combination of two powerful solution in one. So if you use Azure IP, use the classification with the protection with rights management, provides you, encryption, authentication, user authentication if they want to get access to the document, and also to make, enforce the user rights, because you can define that what user right will have this document. A combination of those, then you have to data protected everywhere. Okay, so that means that you have that. Some application support, okay, if you have Office subscription, E3, E4, or E5, and you have these different, clients, operating system, and applications from Office, then you can make use of that. And now it also includes the PDF and video and support for images. Okay, what about a demo? What about just to take a look at the Azure IP Management Console? Let's see. Let me open it here. For some of you, if you have already used this new Azure, Microsoft Azure portal, this is the new portal. And right here, maybe on your subscription, you will see more. That's because you can configure some favorites. So, and for the purpose of this demo, I just wanted to make, to make them easy to find. So you see here on the policy, you have the policies that is defined here. I have to define the default, and as I told you, I have 5 classifications right here, and obviously this classification and this policy is related to sensitivity. You can also use some information that the end user will see. Let me show you right here. We have this option where we can make sure that all the documents and emails they are classified, they have a label. That's something very powerful, because even if it's just a document that it's being created from zero, that document, if the end user wants to save the document, then the document must be classified in order to be saved. So in that way, we make sure that all the document, all the information from the organization is classified. And for example, if one user, if receive a document with confidential classification, and if that user wants to change it to public, if they want to apply a classification that is lower in sensitivity, then the end user needs to add a justification that needs to say why it's removing or doing, applying a lower classification. So this is very powerful. And also, if you want to make sure that all the information is, classified by default, by a default level, then you can also make sure you make use of that classification level. And and this last option that you have here is that, for example, if the end user is creating an email, that he tries to classify it as public, but he's attaching a document that was already classified as confidential, then the email and the document will be, classified as confidential, and the end user will have to, have the proper permissions in order to consume the document. All right. So let me show you here. I'll go straight to this one that I want to show you. As I told you, what we can define, for example, are sub-levels. So if you have a highly confidential information, but maybe you have some specific project, I have created this for purpose of the demo. So what we have here, if you click here, we have the label name, we have a descriptions for this label, and we have also configured, we have integrated a protection to this template or to this classification. So we have integrated the RMS template with this classification. So if you see here on the classification is bound to an RMS template, right? So this template, it's coming from the Azure RMS that I will show you in the next video. So that means that all the information that is classified as highly confidential and Project Alpha will apply this classification, this policy template. We can add some visual marking, that means some header, footers, and also the watermarking. You can define what information will be added, what type of watermark, what text, some specific text or string that you want to add to the watermarking, you can do that. And a location, if you want, where do you want to have the watermarking. And another important point that I want to highlight here are the conditions. Remember that I told you that you have the capability to automatically classify some content based on some conditions. So what I have created here is that if the document contains a word that is called, it's alpha, then this document will be automatically classified as confidential, highly confidential Project Alpha. So you also have the option to leave this as recommended. So if the user is creating the document and is typing, Project Alpha, then the solution will recommend to the end user, hey, based on this content that you're creating, we recommend to classify this document or use this classification highly confidential because it contains some Project Alpha information. So as you can see here, I'm pretty sure this is I'm pretty sure that you will take advantage of this solution. I have just given you an overview of the console. On the next videos, we will see how these policies that we have defined here are, how the end users will see this. So you also have words, but if you can play, because the solution also comes with some predefined conditions. For example, if it detects some credit card information, some security social numbers, then you can actually define here, for example, if you add a new condition, then you can play also with the different patterns, or if you can see, for example, here in custom and built-in, sorry, you can see here some of the built-in conditions that are coming with the Azure IP solution. So as you can see here, we have, this is a very powerful solution where you can play with the different classifications and the different conditions you will require to all the emails and files to be classified from the beginning. That's something that you can play with. So I hope that this information has been useful for you. You can see the Azure IP console. You can get it through the portal.azure.com. It's not, you will not find on the classic Azure portal. This is coming on the new one. So this is the first section. We will have seen the Azure IP console, and on the next video we will see how to integrate what is behind the scene, which is rights management services. Why rights management services is a powerful solution that, combined with Azure IP, they make this a powerful solution. Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed this, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.